Fog drifted low across the narrow lanes of Whitechapel when the killings attributed to Jack the Ripper began. The year was 1888, and London's East End was a place of crowded lodging houses, gaslight flicker, and the constant rattle of horse-drawn carts over uneven cobblestones. In the early hours, the district's hum quieted to a damp stillness, broken only by footsteps and the hiss of rain against brick. It was in these hours that fear took root. Residents spoke in whispers, glancing over shoulders as they hurried through alleys lined with shuttered shops and the faint glow of tavern windows. The air smelled of coal smoke and refuse, mingling with the metallic tang of the Thames drifting inland. Police patrols moved with lanterns swinging, their light cutting thin paths through the mist. Each discovery came without warning. An alarm raised, a constable's whistle piercing the dark, and then the gathering of onlookers drawn by morbid curiosity and dread. The press soon gave the unknown killer a name that would echo for generations, a name that turned a local terror into a worldwide legend. The crimes were not the first acts of violence in the East End, but they carried a precision and audacity that unsettled even hardened officers. In a city already divided by wealth and want, the murders exposed the fragility of safety for those living on society's margins. Night after night, the fear deepened, and the streets emptied earlier. The gas lamps seemed dimmer. The sound of boots on whetstone became a reminder that someone unseen might be watching. When the first bodies were found, the response was immediate but chaotic. Constables sealed off narrow courts with wooden barriers, pushing back crowds that gathered despite the hour. Reporters arrived almost as quickly as the police, their notebooks damp from the drizzle, sketching outlines of the scene under flickering lamplight. The smell of wet wool and smoke filled the air as officers took statements from shaken witnesses who had heard cries or footsteps, but could recall little else. The victims were carried to nearby mortuaries on stretchers covered with coarse cloth, followed by a hush that settled over the watching crowd. Inside the small police stations, telegraph operators tapped out urgent messages to headquarters, summoning detectives from Scotland Yard. The streets around Whitechapel High Street were cordoned off, and constables paced their beats with heightened vigilance. Residents locked doors that had rarely been bolted before. Women traveling alone began to pair up, walking quickly beneath the gas lamps, eyes fixed ahead. The authorities posted notices urging calm, but the tone of the broadsheets told another story, panic spreading faster than the fog. Each new discovery deepened the sense that the killer moved freely among them, unseen yet always near. In the early mornings, the city's horse trams rolled past shuttered stalls, their drivers glancing toward alleys now infamous by name. The rain washed the cobbles clean, but the fear lingered, clinging to the damp air like soot. The investigation that followed was one of the most extensive of its time. Detectives canvassed lodging houses, interviewing tenants and landlords by candlelight, their notebooks filling with names and half-remembered faces. They examined blood-stained garments, scraps of fabric, and footprints pressed into mud, preserving what they could before the elements erased the traces. Without modern forensic tools, they relied on observation, witness statements, and the slow process of elimination. Policemen walked fixed routes through the night, checking doorways and alley mouths, their whistles ready. At Scotland Yard, maps of Whitechapel were pinned with colored tacks marking each site, the pattern studied for any clue to the killer's movements. The coroner's inquests drew crowds, with clerks recording every word as doctors described their findings in restrained clinical terms. Meanwhile, the community organized informal patrols, groups of men carrying lanterns and truncheons, determined to protect their neighbors. Women's charities distributed leaflets urging vigilance and offering safe lodging for those at risk. The newspapers printed sketches of suspects based on rumor more than fact, and the post office received hundreds of letters claiming to be from the murderer himself. Detectives sorted through them by lamplight, the smell of sealing wax heavy in the room, searching for any phrase that might reveal authenticity. Each lead seemed promising, then dissolved into contradiction. The tension between police and public grew, fueled by frustration and fear that the killer was always one step ahead. As weeks turned into months, the case expanded beyond Whitechapel, drawing attention from across Britain and beyond. Theories multiplied, some plausible, others wild. Investigators questioned sailors, butchers, doctors, and anyone whose trade involved knives or night work. They followed trails through docks and lodging houses, across bridges and into the heart of the city, each clue leading only to another dead end. The press played a powerful role, publishing letters and illustrations that blurred fact and fiction, shaping public perception of both the victims and the police. Political pressure mounted on Scotland Yard, and senior officers faced criticism for failing to catch the killer. Detectives experimented with early forms of criminal profiling, comparing handwriting, height estimates, and behavioral patterns. They examined the timing of each crime, the proximity to certain taverns, and the routes of nearby patrols. Yet the identity of the murderer remained elusive, hidden behind the anonymity of the city's poorest quarters. The fear altered daily life. Curfews grew common, and the once bustling night markets thinned to silence. Even the fog seemed heavier, as if the city itself were holding its breath. Rumors spread of secret investigations, of suspects quietly released, of evidence misplaced in the confusion. By the winter's end, the killings ceased as abruptly as they had begun, leaving behind unanswered questions and a community forever changed. The streets returned to their routines, but the sense of safety never fully recovered. In the years that followed, the legend of the Ripper grew far beyond the narrow lanes where the crimes occurred. Scholars, detectives, and enthusiasts revisited the evidence, each generation bringing new theories and new technology to the old mystery. Yet the truth remained just out of reach, obscured by lost records, unreliable witnesses, and the passage of time. For the people of Whitechapel, the legacy was not the myth, but the memory of fear, the sound of whistles in the fog, the hurried steps home, the knowledge that danger could hide in plain sight. The case reshaped policing in London, prompting reforms in patrol organization, record-keeping, and investigative training. It also revealed the deep social divides of Victorian life, where poverty and neglect left entire communities vulnerable. Today, the story endures as both caution and curiosity, a reminder of how mystery can outlive certainty. The name Jack the Ripper has become shorthand for the unknown, a symbol of how violence and anonymity can intertwine in the shadows of a great city. The gas lamps are gone now, replaced by electric light, but the echoes of that autumn still linger in the narrow streets. Each retelling brings the fog back for a moment, the quiet, the footsteps, and the unanswered question that has haunted history ever since.